lots seem to be on that far side, nothing to do with Hudson Wharf Road or only Club or vice versa. So they're all on the.
Yeah, the management plan covers wide areas, so
Yeah.
I'm just making sure that there's no impact.
It is in the Hudson Wharf Reserve, though. They're all in the Hudson Wharf Reserve.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What were these lots originally? Were they houses? Were they mining leases? What were they? I mean,
Don't know.
no.
All I know is now Council lives in the bush.
Yeah, okay, yeah, right. I mean, my father was there. I mean, that's how old it is. He's been dead 15 years. But the other question is this overall a benefit to the council that we're doing this, or is it just housekeeping?
To my knowledge, it's just housekeeping, but I'll just throw that over to Mr. Muir.
It's an interesting question. Really, in finality, one could argue that it's a benefit that the council doesn't have, land assets that it is responsible for maintaining, etc. Having said that, as Crown Land managers, the council takes up that responsibility in any event. So it's really just housekeeping.
I shall put that in councillors. Those in favour? Thank you, carried unanimously. 10.1.5.
Happy to move, Mayor.
Councillor McAndrew, second Councillor Smith. Councillor McAndrew.
Yeah, Mayor, the recommendation is sensible. I think it's a good decision, defer the decision to give the Clarence Dargan Community Association more time to have a look at their options. And certainly, if they're successful with an application for grant funding, I think it's been sitting there for some time, a little bit long, won't create any problems for us.
Councillor Smith. Any other commentary? Councillor Collins.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Thompson. Look, I'd like to see council be actively involved in seeking the funding, working very closely with the community, and I do not want to see infrastructure sold in the purpose of building infrastructure. We need to try and preserve this as much as possible. But yeah, I believe that working with the community, giving them a little bit more time will be beneficial.
Councillor Goodson.
It's very obvious that the Clarence Dargan Community Association have done their homework, and if their plans for this community space come to fruition, it will be remarkable and invaluable for the community, and I wish them every success in their grant funding. Council's deferral of this matter gives them the opportunity to seek funding, and obviously that means council understands the community's needs.
Thank you. Any other comment from councillors? Councillor McAndrew, right?
Yeah, just very briefly in response to Councillor Coleman, we still assist groups with grant funding applications, I understand, but we've done it for a number, so there's no reason why this can't occur with this group. I understand that's still ongoing.
As far as I understand it is, yes.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor, that's all I've got.
Okay, so put that councillors, those in favour? Carried unanimously. We do have a late report, councillors, 10.1.6, have you got that?
Happy to move as it is.
What is it?
What is it? Oh, that's a call-in matter that we send out to the menu.
Yeah.
No.
No, the side meeting at 40 Parramatta.
Yeah, no, I've got it. So many coming in late.
You need any explanation before,
Yes, that would be good.
okay, Mr. Mayor.
This refers to item 10.1.6, which is the modification application in relation to earthworks, where we did have a site inspection at 2 locations following the council's resolution at the last meeting. The first residents there. I think it's fair to say that the residents there seem to be quite satisfied in relation to what was going to occur, and no objections were raised. We then proceeded to another location close to the Great Western Highway, where there has been a long-standing, ongoing drainage issue, and which we looked at, and we I suppose received some representations from a couple of pages there. That particular site in itself is separated from where this modification application is situated, so it doesn't really have any relevance. We've since had some discussions with the assistance of Mr. Edgecombe, looking at some of the flattening information, going through the intervening land and historic information, and I suppose put simply, it does appear to be a natural flow path that does flood, and consequently there's not a lot we can do about that. The developer has put in a detention basin which is sized to a greater capacity that would what would be required. That would be doing its job in that respect. Mr. Edgecombe is also going to help us and have some discussions with Transport for New South Wales down, I suppose, bottoming where it reaches the Great Western Highway to see if there might be any options for some additional drainage to relieve what appears to be a point where the water does build up. I suppose I'm not sure how that'll pan out, but we put that separately to this modification application, which must be treated on its own merits and its own distinct site, and we recommend it for approval.
Somebody like to add? Councillor Goodsall?
I second it.
Second, Councillor Ring. Councillor Goodsall?
No, I don't think I've got too much to say, Mr Mayor. It's very obvious that the late submission that we received while I had an error, and it didn't have anything to do with this modification, which only came to us because it's now impacting on council land. So it's important for this DA to keep going, and for the developer to keep preparing his site.
Councillor Ring?
Look, I had no problem with the original report, the author of the original report. I had high regard for him, no longer works at council, he's moved on. However, it was council's decision to do a site inspection, which I respect. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend on the day due to unforeseen circumstances. I think the outcome of the report speaks for itself. It is a good outcome. Some of the concerns raised by residents are being looked at by the administration. And I think it's a good outcome. We need this to move forward.
Councillor?
Yeah, I also attended the meeting that talked about the DA, and I'm satisfied that the DA won't significantly impact on the community out the other side. I did go to the other side of the where the modifications don't include this DA modification. I don't accept that the water issues on the opposite side are not part of this DA. It's not with stormwater problems. There is a natural water course there. I have had phone calls with other family members that have lived there for over 50 years, and they still say that since a dam was removed, the water problem by the proponent, the water problems have significantly got worse. But I guess that's not. This doesn't impact the actual DAs. Where it says in the motion that just for a second. Stormwater is a natural occurrence based upon the information and findings. Yes, I can see that it is a naturally occurring area, but from the information gained from all the family members that have been there for a very long time, so the dam that was there was not always a full dam. It was a spring. There was a spring near that dam, but it was below that dam, not at that dam. When it rained, that dam filled up, stopping all of that water. So I can only say yes, I'll accept the recommendation. I don't accept that solely the water on the other side.
I do believe that the site inspection was worthwhile because I do believe that there has been some collaboration now between the developer and the main residents that were being
thanks, Mayor, and I was going to ask that specific question because I understood that there's no doubt on the second, I was at the site visit as well, no doubt the second part of that meeting, there's one applicant, so one family majorly affected, and I had heard that there'd been some conversation between that specific family and the applicant, so that's good to hear. Yes, there wasn't much raised at the first one, but what was clearly stated was that opportunity for those people will come and a formal DA for building occurs in that area. There's not a great deal of work being undertaken over here. Councillor Goodwin's right. The major impact has been in the second part of the site inspection. But look, I think the report answers all the matters. We really don't have much choice.
Try to reply, Councillor Goodson.
I don't think it's that we haven't got any choice. I think that this recommendation is coming back to us from the last council meeting, and clearly any submissions that were received had absolutely nothing to do with the development application that's happening at the top of Mundinga Drive. I'd just like to also say, I think since that meeting, the developer has again gone above and beyond to install possibly, I think, some more drainage to try and alleviate those concerns, which are a totally separate matter to this item that we're talking about now.
Thank you. Okay, so put it, councillors, vote in favour. Declare that carried. Thank you. 10.2.1, fee waiver request for the Lithgow Football Association, fire or Marjorie Jackson Oval. Somebody like to move?
Sure.
Do Councillor Goodson?
Yeah, I'll see.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Goodson?
I support the recommendation as it stands, and I'm sympathetic and I understand the hardships of all community groups during COVID and after COVID, but I know in the report it says that other councils have waived fees for sporting organisations right through their community. Lithgow City Council aren't other councils. Other councils may have the privilege of a stronger financial position or a surplus of money or maintenance. If we do choose to waive the fee, I agree with the recommendation that we have little choice but not to spend money maintaining this facility. But the big sway for me to not support the Lithgow District Football Association is that there's no data. I can't see any evidence. I can see words that represent that they're having financial difficulties, but I cannot see, we've just got to take that on face value and believe that organisation that they're struggling, and I can't consider this request from them without financials.
Thank you. Councillor Reid?
If we were to support this request from this group, that sets a precedent where any group in the community would come to us, as far as I'm concerned, would be required to provide them with the same. I think councils try to be as fair and as generous as they can during the COVID period. We have limits. We have financial constraints. COVID has also impacted on council. We have, regardless of what's through government legislation and requirements, we have cut rents on tenants in properties that the council owns. We have done what we can. I believe we have to be hard on this. If they come back with more evidence or more information, happy to revisit it. At the moment, I can't. I've got to support as it stands.
Just to interrupt before other councillors speak, I recall when the Baggy Blues were here going back some time ago, they made the comment that they've been riding through the state and they haven't seen any of their sporting fields anywhere in the state. And that was that comes from Councillor Smith. And so, I think that Lithgow can be very, very proud of these sporting fields. And I know that Lithgow football, not Lithgow football, but state football throughout New South Wales come here frequently to play their sport on Saturday and Sunday. So our sporting fields must be pretty good.
Yeah, Mary, if I may, look, there has been relief given over the last 12 months to all those sporting bodies that requested it. I can't recall whether the soccer people were part of that. I know there was requests from football, I know there were requests from cricket and the like. So that support was given over that period of time, and COVID's not gone away, but certainly the worst of it's behind us. So I'm hoping that things will move forward. And I do agree with Councillor Goodsall. It's not a matter about what other councils have done, it's about what we do. And I don't know what other councils did with their COVID during the COVID time regarding these requests. And I certainly don't want to see any services reduced by maintenance in relation to any monies that have got to be paid for any specific group that uses our sporting resources. And I'm concerned, and you've been a big one, Mayor, for consistency. If it's given to one, then it has to be given for all. And I don't know what that cost would ever get to.
Oh, Mayor Thompson,
It's not working.
They're
They're not working. Mine's not working either.
just start this so people can hear me. This one.
Alright, I'm going to adjourn for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm happy to second
Have
that.
a second.
Okay. We're adjourning for 5 minutes. Those in favour?
Mine's
A
not.
lot of words, isn't it?
Or we use that.
Well, I don't know if this is
That
working.
was working because that was putting you back through. Has it been turned on?
They talk about the insurance licenses, but actually broke most of that material and negotiated terms with
Well,
people.
we're asking.
Yeah, which is the right thing to do. So they're always based on the nominal fee, which is about.
It was working when she put it on there. Because she said it had a low back.
No,
I thought she
no,
replaced the battery.
The other issue was the legal advice that commercially
back up. We're back on?
Back on.
All I was going to say is that I know the soccer's taken a significant drop in numbers due to COVID. I was wondering if there's any grants or anything, the Football Association can look up for any help, level grants or anything, we can help them out and point them in the right direction.
Look, councillor, I believe that all sporting bodies are going through exactly the same as the Football Association is. I think it's up to them to, and council would certainly help them put in for any grants that they may put in for it, but I think it's up to the individual sides themselves to the same as rugby league or hockey or anything like that. But council would certainly help them put a grant together.
May Thompson, if I may.
Yeah.
Because I haven't made up my mind yet, I was going to ask a couple of questions. This issue comes to the Sports Advisory Committee. We know that the football club come and discuss it at the Sports Advisory Committee. No? Okay. In the report, it states that if the fee is reduced or waived, services may also be reduced. A high standard of maintenance by our recreation staff may not be able to provide due to the lack of funding and resources. What does that mean in layman terms? Because the total amount is $2,894 that they want waived. In layman terms, how does that actually affect services may be reduced? Like in layman terms, financial terms, does that really make a big difference to services being waived? And the reason I ask that is that if the District Football Association decide that football isn't to run this year because they can't afford that fee and they don't run football at all, so they're not going to pay fees anyway, what does that mean in regards to the services?
Through you, Mayor Thompson. As many of the councillors will be aware, we have been through a very difficult process in setting a draft budget for next financial year. We need to carefully assess all of the services offered by council and the costs that are associated with them. What we do get in revenue for Tony Lucchetti doesn't come anywhere near what it costs on a yearly basis. However, it does contribute to those costs. So reductions in services, if we weren't to obtain that level of revenue, would be reduced mowing, possibly less frequency in terms of the watering, using irrigation, things like that, the cleaning services that are offered for the Ashley grandstand, the bird netting that was recently installed. All of that is paid for using council's revenue, which in part comes from the fees paid by our sporting teams and other event holders in the LGA.
Mayor Thompson, if I may, that doesn't actually answer my question. My second part of my question is, if the Lithgow District Football Association decides that they can't afford $2,894 and they decide that the Lithgow District Football Association doesn't run this season, which means that they won't pay that fee, does that directly impact on the services that you just outlined, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Mayor, we're dealing with a hypothetical there, and clearly council would intervene and not allow that to happen. Of course, we're committed to sporting facilities and sporting teams, sport. We, as Councillor Goodfellow said, we've not seen the evidence of the facts to prove that there's particular hardship. I guess that comment there really also acknowledges that there would be a cumulative impact, because if one was to waive the fee for this sporting group, it would only be fair and reasonable to do the same for all sporting groups across the city, and we don't have the financial capacity for that. That's what the report's speaking to.
Yeah, the question I'd like to ask is, why did they leave the association leave their request and the season's been going for 2 or 3 weeks? This is what I can't work out. If they wanted this request, why didn't they put it in before the season started? They tell me the numbers are astronomical down at juniors. I know that Councillor McAndrew's grandkids play and might play, but I just can't work out why the request wasn't put in before the season started. So maybe that can answer that for us.
I really don't know whether they thought that they'd have a senior side playing in the western area of that particular.
Is this seniors and or the whole thing is a lot? Is it
Well,
junior, seniors, the lot?
It's Lithgow Football Association in
So
general.
that's the juniors as well?
Yeah.
Can I just get a clarifying question?
Yes.
The fees from this, from Marky Jackson, do they also go to Tony Leggetti? Is that what you're saying?
No, Mr. Richmond made an assumption, made a statement regarding Tony Leggetti. This is regarding Marky Jackson. But the rugby league and so forth paid for the fees for the Tony Leggetti. This is regarding Marky Jackson. The same thing. It's exactly the same. It doesn't matter what field it's playing on, they've got to be maintained.
Now, could I also ask a question in response to the comment by the GM? If I understood what the GM's comment in response to Councillor Coleman was, is that anybody gets into a real problem where the sport can be shut down, we'd be sympathetic. Did I get that right? Did I get that right? I'm just wondering whether I should move an amendment that the GM and staff meet with the association and understand their concerns and bring a report back to this council. I'm happy to move that
I'm
amendment.
happy to second that. Yeah, I'm happy to second that because I'm not in support of it. We need to have more of a discussion with the Lithgow District Football Association.
I don't think it would hurt me, and the council had the right then to make the decision at that time, based on all the facts before them.
Anybody else want to speak to that? I've got an amendment put up and a seconder. Anybody else want to speak to it?
I'd like to speak to the amendment, Mayor Thompson. Look,
To the amendment, that's what I'm asking.
yeah, to the amendment. Looking at it, I get the question about what reality happens, particularly with the ground rental, but you're also looking at lighting. There's a $1,280 fee there for lighting. We have to foot the bill for that. There's a fly-on effect. I think if community groups want something, they've got to justify it when they come in. It just can't be, we're having trouble. Well, you're having trouble. And this was an issue, Councillor Gandy will know that, correct me if I'm wrong, this was an issue with the Portland swimming pool as well. There were meetings with the committee, they had to show books, they had to go through what their problems were. Any group in the community could say, we're having financial difficulty, please waive the fee. We need to be consistent in how we approach all these. So I'm not going to support the amendment. I think we need to be hard on it. And it doesn't mean they can't come back in the future, but it's really up to them. The board and their court.
Oh, yeah. I've got a significant problem with it myself as well, because I see that any sporting body could go to the extent to say, well, we've got no money, and then all of a sudden it comes back to council. I have got a real problem with it. But when you have a look at it, you've got lighting, $1,200 virtually for the whole of the football. All the people that are playing football, they've got $1,280 to pay. Really, if they don't want to train the night time, it's not a lot of money. Anyway, I've got an amendment. Those in favour of the amendment? Those against? I declare it lost. I think I've got that.
Cast your vote.
Yeah.
You've got to use your
I'm
cast your vote.
using my casting vote to declare the amendment lost. And we now go back to the original motion. Councillor Woodson, I reply.
Look, I don't want to seem like I'm being disrespectful or not thoughtful about the Lithgow District Soccer Association, but we've talked about the many ways that this can come back to council in many, many forms. One question, if I could ask, please, Mr. Mayor, if they couldn't pay that money, and the last thing we want is for that to happen, is there is a payment plan that they could, yeah, so that's not going to happen.
No.
Yeah, we're not going to leave it in that position.
Okay then, so I shall put the motion now then. Those in favour of the motion?
I'm not sure I understand it now. it's quite clear that council declines the fee waiver reduction request from the Lithgow District Football Association due to the need for councils to recover costs of maintaining Marjorie Jackson Oval. In the story, that's what's been moved. There's no comeback, or that was the reason I put my amendment. There's no comeback based on that.
There's no comeback. Right, so I shall put it now. Those in favour of the motion? Those against? Councillor Coleman and Henry against. N 3.1.
Happy to move, Mayor.
Second, Councillor Wood.
Just briefly, Mayor, I note the number of sequences of health guideline values and Ag Park water quality summary, and also the water mains and service issues and sewer mains service issues. There seems to be a lot. I just hope we're getting on top of them all. That's quite a list when one looks at them. Pretty well over a short period of time as well. So I support the report, but I just note with concern the number of issues that we're having.
Yes, it's quite a list that we as a council ended up a lot better than a lot of other councils did in the state. I can assure you during those heavy rains and. Councillor Leslie, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just, I noticed that we get a heavy rainfall, at least over on Dam does, about every fourth or fifth year. 2012, 2016, but the one we got in 2020 and late last year, beginning now, was about half the sort of the volume that we're getting earlier. We don't know how much they were going up because they hit the 100%. And in effect, we're only back to where we were in, say, March 2019. If you work back to 46% across the page there. My point is that we need to be vigilant about the water in the local government area. We just don't know when the next drought's coming. If, for example, the one we've had is actually finished, and when you get down to, as Oberon did, down to 25%, you do have concerns. So it's very pleasing to see just the water usage that's right down, but that's not necessarily going to stay. When March, for example, we had a lot of rain, but in April, the South Coast, we've had 2 mils this month, and that's all. And sure, that makes no difference at this stage, but my point is that we do need to just keep an eye on this, and it's great that we get this regular report. And I would be very, just keep watching it. I'm not sure what I'm trying to do here, but it's just pointing out that water is precious, and if it's not in your dam, there's not much you can do.
I'd say that we've had quite a couple of huge breaks in the open pipeline. Huge breaks.
Mayor
Okay,
Thompson?
any other commentary?
Yeah, Mayor Thompson.
Just to respond to that, management is alert to that issue, and it's a good issue. And we look forward, there are a number of actions afoot to shore up the city's water security, and I'm sure that we'll be briefing the council more extensively about those actions.
Mayor Thompson. Following on from that, look, I'd just like to say we've had a few breakages, and that's always going to happen with our ageing infrastructure.
I just hold you up there for a second.
Yeah.
Councillor, you seconded.
This, do you want to say no?
Sorry, apologies.
Yeah, you're right.
Look, we have ageing infrastructure. We've had a number of breaks. I'd just like to bring to your attention, there was a report in the the media a few weeks ago about Sydney Water reducing the pressure significantly in a number of Sydney suburbs because of millions of litres of water that is being leaked through the pipes. We're not unique. I think our staff are doing the best that they can to manage an ageing infrastructure with limited resources we have. That's all I want to say.
I did see the same report, Councillor Rick, the amount of water that it's lost through Sydney Water.
A lot of people complaining about the showers not being up to scratch.
Any other commentary, Councillor? Tom?
Thanks, Mayor Thompson. Look, thanks for a detailed, direct report. Daniel Mr. Buchan should be congratulated on that. Thank you, Daniel. It states that the council will likely exceed the water access licence. I just want to understand what that actually means. Is that due to the fact that we're looking at possibly a drier winter? I'm not quite sure what that means. Could we get, through you, Mayor, can we get a bit of understanding on what that means?
Mr. Buchan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. If you have a look at the table contained within the report, the first column draws your attention to the water we take from Farmers Creek Dam. We only have a licence, so our water access licence only allows us to take 1,500 megalitres a year from Farmers Creek Dam. As you'll see, up until the end of March, we've taken 1,423 megalitres. Given the current operational arrangement where council is providing 100% of the water to the LGA, so we're not utilising any water from the Fish River or the Oberon Dam, we will exceed that volume. What that means is, under the water access licence, we have a 3-year rolling average. So you can exceed in any 1 or 2 years, as long as the combined total over a 3-year period doesn't exceed 4,500. It's just something to be mindful of as far as future planning and how we utilise the resource. So at some point we may need to call upon Fish River to supply more in 1 year into the future, depending on how that sort of plays out.
Just through you, Mayor, if I may. I think it's great too that the water mains and service issues are laid out on page 34. It's really transparent, and congratulations on that as well.
Any other commentary? Councillor McAndrew,
Yeah, just, there was no indication of any dissatisfaction with staff, and simply noted the report and the hard work that Mr. Buckins and his staff are undertaking. That's simply my intention.
I shall put that in, Councillor, so in favour. Thank you. 10.4, sale of land.
Move.
Happy to take it. Been moved. Go, Councillor Rick. Second, Councillor Smith.
Mayor Thompson, this is an administrative procedure. We were fully briefed on this. Councils, on a regular basis, and it's legislated, are able to recoup for the sale of lands unpaid rates. There is a significant amount of money, and I think the sooner we get this done, the better. Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Ring. In that amount of money, the council's had a very tight year with money restraints, and this will help our council in the future.
If I could just ask a question, why in the table, there's no street addresses? Why is there any reason why you can't have street addresses?
Through to you, Mr. Mayor. Simply for, mainly for privacy issues, published that information within and over the council.
Thank you.
Mayor Thompson, if I may?
Yes.
I just have a question. I support the recommendation. This is long overdue, really. In the recommendation states to negotiate by private treaty and accept offers for sale of any property that fails to sell at auction. I just noted a note in the table that property 104272, which years of outstanding 15, it's only 95 square metres, so I'm assuming would be a market valuation for that? Like, I can't see that being sold at auctions, a very small parcel of land. Can I just get that answered?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. That, I don't know the precise particulars of that piece of land, but for example, it may be a landlocked piece of land that may be attractive to an adjoining owner. And from council's perspective, even if it sells for a low amount, we'll then have the rates paid for future years. So that is a benefit.
Councillor Leslie.
Yeah, a couple of questions. On page 36, what's a road buyer? Can I, what's a road buyer that we have to sort of make sure we don't deal with? I'm just curious. I've got a couple of other questions after that.
Road buyers, it's really a technical term. There are apparently, and I'm not a real estate expert myself, of course, but there are apparently ways that people can purchase properties at auction, then organise not to settle on that. So effectively the title doesn't transfer, and they can avoid paying the outstanding rates on the property.
Right, okay. Thank you. The other questions I've got is, of this list of 37, how many were unknown owners? Because councils will recall, Mr. Mayor, I've asked for details about land around the Lithgow Low Covered area that people don't know the owners of. So does that include some of that land that people don't know who the owners are, or is that report hopefully still to come?
Through Mr. Mayor, I'll have to take that question on notice, but I can send a memo to councillors tomorrow with a number of unknown owners. Usually that may be land that's been, there's been some changes to the lot, so I'll provide more information tomorrow.
For example, the property next to 2 Bells Road, for example, there were questions about whether the council knew who owned it or not. That's just one that's coming up, and certainly some of the land up behind McKellar's Park in that area. But thank you for that. The third question is, we're recommending outstanding collections to be the agents for this. Were outstanding collections chosen after some form of tender process conducted by the council?
Again, I'll take that on notice, but there wasn't a tender process. We would usually use a local government procurement contract for debt collection services, but I'll confirm that and provide information.
Well, that's fair enough, but by the time you provide information, this vote's been taken. My thought was, what do we know about outstanding collections?
We have utilised these services for about 12 months, and we've had a satisfactory level of service provided by them and some success in their approach to debt collection.
Thank you. I'm happy to take that as being a recommendation.
Thank you. Any other councillors?
I've just got a question to Mr. Mayor. So we haven't acted on this since 2011, I don't believe. So I'm just wondering, when will we be acting on it again? So will it be in another 5 years, when there's 5 years of unpaid rates, or the balance of rates is more than the property value? When will we revisit it again?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it should be done on a more regular basis, so yes, at least every 5 to 7 years.
Okay, yeah.
Not 24, as we've got here.
Yes, Thompson, you're right, reply.
Yeah, you want to reply, yes.
In respect to the issue that Councillor Leslie raised, when we were during COVID and we engaged this company, I had some complaints from residents in Portland. There was more misunderstanding than anything. But eventually the feedback I got from the residents that the company was extremely fair and reasonable to deal with. So I'm fully confident with them. I'd just like to clarify too, as an email sent out by council, just so it's on record that councillors, I think staff can, if they wish, I don't. But if you wish to purchase one of these properties at auctions, you can. However, I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, councillors and staff cannot purchase these properties if they do not sell by private treaty. Could just get clarification on that, please?
That is correct, and that is set out in the Local Government Act. It's a transparent process, of course, of horticulture. So that is municipal councils and all staff to purchase property, these properties at auction.
Thank you, Mr. Gunny. I just wanted to have a public record. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's the right to reply. I'll put that in Councillor President over. Gary. 10.4.2 delivery program and operational plan. Somebody like to move? Councillor Bristol.
Happy to second.
Second, Councillor Canberra. Councillor Bristol.
Just happy to endorse the recommendation. It's council staff's role to put this together and place it on public exhibition, and then it's the residents' responsibility to make submissions and comment, and then it comes back to council and we debate it and make a decision then.
Councillor Canberra.
Yeah, support it, but I know the late email from the GM out, well, a late email, I think, from Mr. McGrath on behalf of the GM and what the process will be. Just wonder whether the GM should speak to some of that tonight.
I'm certainly happy to do that. I'm looking at Mr. McGrath, who can also embellish anything or fill in any gaps that I leave out. But we've learned a lot out of COVID, and I think the community has also, and so there's great comfort with WebExes and electronic forums, and so I'm really pleased to say I think we've come up with a quite engaging process of consultation on this exhibited document. As the report suggests, the document will be put out to public exhibition. We're proposing a series of e-forums where these will all be advertised and people can phone in, dial into those, and so we'll be on the screen and we'll have chat lines and we'll be answering questions. There'll be themes for finance, waste management, transport infrastructure, water and wastewater. We're also proposing that we hold one community information session for anybody that's not comfortable with that form of communication. I'm proposing that we held a forum that's able to take quite an unfettered number, and we'd be actively reaching out to community groups, associations, chambers of commerce, tidy towns and the like, and hoping that they come to that forum. And I think that'll be quite inclusive and a good process. We'll also have opportunities for people just to make written submissions or email and the like. And then, of course, at the end of all of that, council's officers will assemble all of that information and bring a report back for council's consideration. Did I miss anything there, Mike?
No, I think that's covered it. Thanks.
Any other commentary, councillors? Right to reply, Councillor Bristol. Okay, I shall put that in. Working capital.
Move, Mayor.
Happy to second.
Councillor Canberra.
Yeah, happy to move, and I touched on the GM has touched on this issue for some time about a working capital reserve, so will be able to be used when required and needed. And I note there's urgent need for it. I look at the bottom of page 47 of the report, where it talks about, in addition, council level internal restricted reserves have been increasing from 16.1 mil in 2016-17 to 6.5 mil in 2019-20. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. but in any event, it's a start number. So we do need to be establishing a working capital reserve that we can use for emergencies, urgency, etc., etc.
Councillor Ring?
Mayor Thompson, put it simply, this is like a big petty cash account. I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but we need money to pay our bills on a weekly basis. In the past, we've had our financial accounts or our financial investments timed to meet these payments. And that's very risky, as we have found out, particularly now that we've got very low interest rates and returns. There's not a lot of fat on the bone. By having the money there, we can pay our bills as the bonds or whatever mature, they go back in. The money goes against the appropriate projects. But at all times, we have money on hand to meet our immediate bills, our salary and other operating costs that fall on a fortnightly or weekly basis. I think this is due, and I think it's kudos to the council for coming up with it.
Thank you.
Mayor Thompson, if I may. We're in a really difficult financial situation. That's clear from this report, and I acknowledge that, and I support the recommendation. We only have 3 meetings left, and then a new council will come in September. The question I have to you, Mayor, is will the councillors that are elected in September, will they receive in-depth financial training? Because clearly we need to be looking at that when the new council comes in.
Mr. Mayor, we're certainly looking and working with the Office of Local Government on an extensive induction program on all manner of complexities of being a councillor, and yes, finances must be a primary component of that.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Councillor Canberra, got a reply. I shall put that to the councillors. Carried unanimous. 10.5.
Move motion, Mayor Thompson, with amendments.
I'll second it.
Well, let's do the amendment first. And then we'll change the recommendation.
Mayor Thompson, I have 2 recommendations to replace what's been written. That is, a council defer any decision on the Uluru Statement from the Heart pending broader consultation with the local Indigenous community. Point 2, the council invite the Director of the Bathurst Aboriginal Land Council to a council briefing session to discuss the Uluru Statement of the Heart, the legislative role of the Land Council and the development of appropriate documents such as a reconciliation action plan, cultural protocols, and an Aboriginal social development plan. I'm not advocating all of those, I'm just saying they're documents we need to look at and consider.
Everyone second that?
Councillor Goodwin.
I second it for the
debate.
But we got it up there. Okay.
I'm happy for it to get on the screen before I start talking.
But just a clarification, the recommendation in the papers is not adopted, it's not being proposed, it's a completely different motion.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
Not an amendment.
Yeah, apologies. So that's up now, so if you're having there, I'll talk to it. This is a very emotive issue for many people. It's also a very difficult and complex issue. I don't fully understand the broader implications of the 3 reforms: voice, treaty, and truth in the Uluru Statement from the Heart. To date, Council has only had a briefing on this matter by 2 young Wiradjuri women who do not have the cultural authority to speak on behalf of the broader community. And to their credit, they acknowledged that in the briefing. Now, today I went on to the website following the email from Michael McGrath saying that there's a closing date for submissions. It is not a requirement for Council to put in a submission. What is being asked, the government is running, federal government is running a co-design program, which is requesting submissions from anybody in the community on this process. It's quite a complex process. They're looking for ways it can be improved or altered. Now, for those who, I think everyone was here for the presentation by the two young women, the Voice is like a parliamentary review board or something of that nature at this level, which will review legislation that impacts directly on Indigenous people. But looking at the code design side today, what I found is that they're also talking about having 35 or up to 35 local and regional voice committees, commissions, whatever. I don't fully understand this. I don't understand the impact on how we operate. And as a council, I believe we need to be talking to the broader Indigenous community on this matter. And that includes the Wiradjuri, who are traditional owners, but the majority of the Lagos other Indigenous community members. And we have people here of tribes that are originally from the north, like Bob Suter, and the appropriate Gundungurra elders. The Gundungurra elders need to be consulted because they have an Indigenous land use agreement registered with the National Native Title Tribunal that encompasses Lithgow LGA lands east of Rivulet and Genoa Case Road. Now, there's lots of arguments about where the borders go. That's irrelevant. This title's there. That gives that group certain rights for discussion and involvement. I have discussed this report with the Director of the Bathurst Aboriginal Land Council. She does not personally believe that it's appropriate at this stage. If Council endorses the attached submission, it will not have any impact on the lives of Indigenous brothers and sisters. Adoption of the statement by the government will require a national referendum. This is one of those issues where it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If we don't support it now, we're damned or people saying you're racist, you don't care about the community. On the other hand, there'll be members of the same community saying this is nothing more than tokenism. The Indigenous community across Australia is not one voice. There are many voices, and not everyone supports this. I don't know if I support it because I don't fully understand it. As a councillor, I can't go down that path. But what I have discussed and looked at, particularly Bathurst and Orange, they have very detailed protocols for engaging with the Indigenous community. And when you think about the Indigenous community, there are two components. Traditional owners who speak for the land and speak on cultural matters, heritage. And the other Indigenous matters, other Indigenous members of the community who are non-traditional owners who want to speak about social issues and social welfare. At this stage, I'm proposing the Council seeks greater clarification and understanding of the order statement before committing this community to it. Instead, I'm proposing that we build upon the work already started by Council in relation to Layanga Marrigu and engage with our community to develop appropriate protocols and programs that allow Council to engage meaningfully with our Indigenous community and to bring about real change in our LGA. At the moment, we have a fractured community that is not working together. You'll always get that. But I think our community deserves more than tokenism. I think they deserve something that we can do that is tangible, that will help them. Any council in this room who feels passionately about this statement can write to the Co-Design Commission and put in a submission. But I prefer to see something done that will have actual impact and lead to some positive outcomes for our community. And remember, we have a population now of 6.4% of the last census of Indigenous people. And we need to provide them with greater support and a greater say. And Councillor Goodwin was right to raise the issue of Layanga Marrigu to get all the groups together. Just had a $300,000 grant to one group, and that is causing more divide within the various groups in our community. Thank you.
Now, I've listened to to what Councillor has said, and I've pondered over this for a bit. I think, as Councillor said, damned if we do, damned if we don't. I think I'd rather should be doing something now. I think at the end of April, this submission is finalised. They have it finalised by the end of April. And I think that if we support it as council, even though it is quite, I certainly don't know the ins and outs of the exact meaning of what the Uluru Statement is saying, but I know the direction that it's going in, and that's the direction that I'd like the council to go in as well. And that's the direction I'm going to go in. I'd rather be doing something than not be doing anything.
Mick Thompson, I'm happy to move the original recommendation.
As an amendment?
As an amendment, please.
I'll second it.
Councillor
I'll second that. Oh, there it is. I'll second that.
Okay, I've got an amendment now, moved by councillor Coleman and seconded by councillor Leslie.
What it is, that's the original recommendation. If it's an opposite, then maybe that's to be a foreshadowed motion. And I'm happy to foreshadow a motion.
I'm happy to second.
I was just trying to get some clarification on that.
Depending on the debate, I'm happy to put forward a foreshadowed motion.
Thank you. Right, councillor Coleman.
I just want to pick up on where councillor Woodman said, damn if we do or damn if we don't. And I'm in agreement with councillor Woodman. I think we need to move forward with the submissions and go back to the original recommendation that we endorse the draft submission, which I believe has been put together by Mr. McGrath. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Let's go.
You're sorry. So can I ask Mr. McGrath a few questions on the statement? Is that right? Ms. Thompson, please?
What we're here for?
Thank you. So I've pulled up the Lithgow City Council draft submission. It's only 3 paragraphs, but it's to the point, it's very clear. It states in that draft submission, one point that I really acknowledge, my voice to Parliament enshrined in the Constitution. I believe that they should be a voice to Parliament enshrined in the Constitution. So I agree with that part in the draft submission. I think that's very powerful. I also believe that the government must honour its election commitment to a referendum, which is also in that draft submission, so that's also made in that point. And at the bottom, the Uluru Statement from the Heart is called from First Nation people to all of us, and it's essential that they are heard. It is essential that they are heard. So I support this draft submission. That's why I've moved the original recommendation.
Can we get some clarification? Well, I take it that councillor Coleman is speaking against the motion. Because the amendment can't be complete negative of the motion, which it is.
So that means
That's why I'm foreshadowing the motion.
Okay, so, councillor Ring, I think councillor.
Can't hear you, Ms.
Oh,
Thompson.
sorry, I think councillor Ring moved a deferral, didn't he?
Yes.
Yes, I moved the deferral.
It's not
If he's only moved a deferral, that's a clarification I was asking the general manager. Moving a deferral is not a complete.
But the problem with that, Mayor, we've got 5 days.
Yeah, I understand that.
We've got 5 days.
I understand that.
31st of this month.
But we're not finished with the debate yet, so we'll see where it takes us. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you. I don't believe this is an opposition. This is just a different tactic to take it. Look, we had two young women come here at our briefing session. They spoke passionately. They spoke with enthusiasm. And they spoke from the heart. And I think we need to respect that. It was really reassuring to hear that. And the last sentence of this draft submission is, the Uluru Statement from the heart is a call from First Nations peoples to all of us, and it is essential they are heard. Now, the Uluru Statement isn't a Wiradjuri statement. It's a statement from First Nation peoples all over Australia that met at Uluru and asked for this voice to Parliament. Now, it needs to be respected, and I you either agree with it or I don't, and I think with Councillor Coleman that I do agree with it. I think we need to respect their passion and respect the fact that, you know, that the Indigenous people of this, the First Nation people of this continent have been treated, you know, appallingly for 230 years. And we need to adjust that and fix that and look at it and make sure that, you know, that they get a proper voice in Parliament and for a referendum to be put to the Australian people to do that. I would ask that should this draft submission be endorsed, that on the council's website, that we just take away the statement at the moment for attachments, which is simply Lithgow Council draft submission, and actually put it as a statement. Thank you. It's a statement of from the heart from First Nations people. So it's very clear that anyone who's looking up the council business paper knows exactly what they're looking up, and it shows that the council has endorsed it.
If I could just make a short statement. I've spoken to some senior Indigenous people in the town, and they don't believe that Lithgow should be involved in Uluru whatsoever. But in saying that, I also was here when the two young ladies spoke, and I think that on that particular day, I think that the council in general gave them the support that we would acknowledge what do you call it? The statement of the heart, the Uluru statement of the heart. I believe that it may be tokenism to support what they put that day, but and I think you could incorporate everything that Councillor Ring put, as well as the tokenism of saying we support the Uluru statement of the heart. I think we can incorporate everything that Councillor Ring said in his statement as well. Councillor McKenzie.
Yeah, Mayor, before I get to my foreshadow motion, I want to, I'm speaking against the current motion, and but I've got some questions. Councillors come to information sessions in their own time, and a lot of those are very lengthy. I came to that information session in relation to the presentation by our Indigenous people on the basis that they were speaking for everyone. That was my understanding. Well, that was my understanding. That's why I came along, and you know, there was a great presentation by them, and to be quite honest, if there were some concerns being put forward now, they should have been asked at that presentation, to be quite blunt. To put it off or defer it, we just haven't got the time. So it's the 31st. Mr McGrath sent through an email saying that the date has been moved. It's only been moved 5 days. From today, it's only been moved from today 5 days, the 31st of this month, for the opportunity. My procedural, so my foreshadowed motion doesn't pick up what's there and doesn't pick up what the original recommendation in my foreshadowed motion has two parts. Council endorse the Uluru statement and commit to ongoing consultation with and inclusion of the First Nations community of the local government area. 2, Council write a submission outlining their support for the 3 reforms, Voice, Treaty and Truth, and the Uluru statement from the heart. That comes from the commentary, Mayor, so it doesn't have to be rewritten. That comes from part 1 and part 2 of the commentary. Because what the original recommendation hasn't picked up on is ongoing consultation with and inclusion of the First Nations community of the LGA, which I know Councillor Goodman was pretty keen on, pretty strong on at that time. So there's my foreshadowed motion.
We've got a second to Councillor McAndrews, foreshadowed motion.
Yeah.
Councillor Smith. Okay, I'm going to put the amendment, first. Councillor Collins, and those in favour of the amendment?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, can I just get some clarification? We're voting on Councillor Coleman's.
We're voting on the amendment, it's Councillor Collins. Her amendment, Councillor Reid put up the original motion. Councillor Coleman put up an amendment. We're going to vote on that first, then we'll vote on the motion, and then we'll go vote on Councillor McKenna's shadow.
So will I get an opportunity to speak?
You will.
Thanks.
You're allowed to speak, you're allowed to speak to the shadow motion. Have you spoken to the amendment?
No.
Right, okay.
So I'm
Is that what you want to speak to?
Yes, I'm speaking to the original motion.
No, we're speaking to the amendment, we're putting the amendment first.
Which is written the same as the
Written,
written
is what's written on the paper. Is that what you want to speak to?
Yes.
Right.
Sorry,
Okay,
it was very complicated.
it is.
To say that this Uluru statement has no impact is baffling to me. I'm not torn either one way or the other. I'm very definite and I'm very passionate about this. It's a start. It doesn't matter that the whole community won't represent it. We never get representations from and everybody agrees with everything all the time. The impact will be that this is the beginning and council are working behind the scenes to establish a consultative group, either managed by council, a committee of council, or a committee of hopefully it's a committee of council, where that will provide a platform for all of our Indigenous community to raise their concerns, and that is where it is not tokenistic. You cannot say that the Uluru Statement from the Heart Voice Treaty Truth is tokenistic. There will be some real ground gained once we do this. And if it brings others out and elders are uncertain of it or they don't support it, that's a good thing. That might encourage them to be part of our conversations with the broader community, with council supporting that. I fully endorse the original recommendation, which is now the amendment. As a council and a community, we need not to just listen, but to hear. And those girls came here on that day, and they spoke, and it was passionate. And who cares if it's 2 people out of 3 billion? What they had to say on the day was relevant, and the Uluru Statement is relevant. And I support the amendment.
Okay.
Mayor Thompson, I'd like to speak to the amendment if I may.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm not going to support it. But what I would like to say that in Aboriginal culture is the elders that speak to the community, not young girls. They spoke well, they were passionate, they were articulate, well educated. I respect them. But if we want credibility with the community, the Indigenous community, we have to respect their traditions and their culture, and that you deal with the elders. It's the elders who speak for the community, not young people, regardless if they're male or female. It is the elders, the acknowledged elders, and they are the ones that we need to be engaging with. That's all I wish to say.
Is there any other comment on the amendment? I shall put the amendment there. Those in favour of the amendment? Those against? I declare the amendment lost. I shall now
Can we get a count for that?
Yes, we certainly can. Those that support the amendment? Councillor Coleman, Councillor Leslie. Those against? It's Councillor Ring, Goodwin, McAndrew, Thompson and Smith. 5 to 3. I shall now put the
Microphone there.
Microphone.
I shall now put the motion, which was Councillor Ring's original motion. Those in favour of the original motion? That's Councillor Ring. Those against? Now I've got a foreshadowed motion now by Councillor McKenna. Is that up there? Seconded by Councillor Smith. You want to speak to that now, Councillor McKenna?
Yeah, look, just checking it, man.
Yep.
For complete says the submission should follow as I understand, the submission has been prepared by our community development team. So that second point, council right of submission as outlined as an attachment to this report, and that makes that very clear.
You're right now?
Yeah, I am, Mayor. I speak to it on the basis that the motion moved certainly was against. The amendment moved didn't pick up, in my view, an important part that's in the commentary, and that was in relation to point 1, the ongoing consultation with an inclusion of the First Nations community of the LGA. My view was, and it hasn't changed from when we were given that presentation, is that once there's a more formal process in place in relation to voicery and truth, then that says to me that'll filter down, right down federally, state, and down to a local government area, where I think that'll end up enabling a more clearer way of dealing with these matters at a grassroots level, instead of, people keep telling me that 7 different points of view. Well, we can't have 7 different points of view. We've got to have the one point of view for the majority of our Indigenous people within our community. And anything that leads to that, I think, is a good thing. The council can't play the referee in trying to deal with 7 different views. It's impossible. It's not in the best interest of our residents and ratepayers, and certainly not in the best interest of our Indigenous people. We've got to come to a landing on what is in the best interest of the majority of them. That's what democracy is. And I think this process can lead to some set guidelines in relation to it, and that's why I support it.
Yes,
First thing I'd like to see, I second that. Councillor Coleman. Lady, sorry. No, I think that Councillor McKendry's resolution covers everything we need to hear out of this report, and just put the vote.
Any other commentary on the Foreshadowed Nation? Or Councillor McKendry's motion? No? I shall put that then. Those in favour? Those against?
Again, it's very quick to get those names put.
The division was everybody except Councillor Griffin.
That's normal practice. That's normal practice. That's it.
The normal practice is that the mayor names the people voted for and against.
Normal. We have a motion, clearly not done changed. There's all voting in these council chambers. Those vote for and those vote against. That's right.
I'd just like.
Well, it's for the record, it's for the video is what I'm talking about, and it's not happening.
What you want me to call every time that
It's been the standard practice that every vote gives the mayor names the people who are voting for, and names the people who are voting against. And that is not happening, and it hasn't happened a few times tonight.
He's right, Mayor. I was more thinking of the formal minute that we've got and the policy we've got that says all names will be recorded in the minutes of those who vote for and against matters.
I just think inadvertently, sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I speak? That sometimes you say, for, and then you name the councillor that's against. I think is that what you're referring to, councillor?
No.
Well, that's what I've been doing. If there's been anybody against, I call them the councillors that are against. So that just makes it everybody else's fault. But I shall call them one by one and see if that's the case. Righto, we move to adoption of.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
10.52.
Councillor Smith. I'm sorry. Councillor.
It's pretty self-explanatory. The only question I would like to ask the management is, it says here will install and modify appropriate alcohol-free zones after the night gets through. Is there a timeline we'll start on that?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. We'll start straight away.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the way to go.
Thank you. Councillor Ring?
Look, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's good. It's a standard practice. It's just an administrative procedure. However, when this was put out to the public in a media release, it caused a lot of confusion and a lot of negative comments on Facebook, surprisingly. Facebook is a useful tool. You can get the negatives, you can get the rat bags, but it's a very useful tool for disseminating information within this community. What we needed was to put out that this was purely administrative procedure, legally required, and that we're only extending existing things. Because people are claiming that it's going to cost a fortune, this is going to do this, bang, why are we doing it? It's already done. All we're doing is extending it. I just think we need to maybe do the information sharing with the community just a bit more clearer, rather than the implication that this is something new. It's not. Thank you.
Any other commentary, councillor?
Yeah, just to pick up on councillor's comments, look at page 52 or 64, it went out to the community for submissions and views. There were none.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the face.
Well, yeah, but I've got the chair.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sorry.
You know, we've gone out, and I've said there's many ways that we go out and publicise things, not just on Facebook. And I'm simply saying on page 52 that we've gone out for community submissions. There was the opportunity for people to agree, disagree, have views about it, or whatever. No, I'm just not sure what else council needs to do.
Yeah. Any other commentary? I shall put that there. Those in favour? Please, carry the unanimous. Council reports. This local heritage committee minutes. That was the last meeting.
Can I move that, please?
Secretary Councillor Butch.
No, you can.
Last meeting committee. First last meeting of the committee.
Remember that there? Says it's the last meeting of the committee. Committee stays. We need to defer it.
They just
I'd like to change the recommendation that we note the minutes.
Yes. I'll actually second that.
Just note the minutes, not received. And I think we need to take receive out and just council note the minutes. Of the Lithgow Local Heritage Advisory Committee held on the 8th of March 2021, full stop, delete as the last meeting of the committee. So that council note and receive the minutes of the Lithgow Local Heritage Advisory Committee held on the 8th of March 2021, full stop, delete as the last meeting of the committee.
Okay, you happy with that?
And that clears that up.
Right, you want to speak?
Yes, please. I would just like to say a big thank you to Dan Whitty for his service on this committee. He should be acknowledged for that. That's the first thing I want to say. Just a big thank you to him. And I just have a question in regards to the Lithgow Pottery report works. Can someone give us some information on that? That looks quite interesting. I read the minutes and I was quite curious about that. Can we get some information on that?
I will look for Mr. McGrath in case I don't quite get it right, because I know that one of his staff is actually taking carriage at this one, but the Lithgow Pottery and Brickworks, part of that site is owned by council, part of that site is owned by another party. And it is a heritage item of state significance, I believe. And in that regard, the council, through its normal annual budget process, has funded the production of a conservation management plan, and that is in process at the moment.
Thank you, that sounds exciting.
Right, councillor Mitchell, you want to speak to that? No. Okay. I shall put that then. Thank you. Carried unanimous. Youth Advisory Committee meeting minutes.
Happy to move.
Happy to second.
Councillor Coleman.
Thanks, Mayor Thompson. I know that the Youth Council have written a submission in support of the enshrined voice in the Constitution. Can we just get some detail on that? Can I get a copy, please? Mr. Murrah, through you, Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, they have. The Youth Council did put in a submission some time ago. I can send that out to councillors. I imagine it would be very similar to the draft submission we were looking at this evening.
So the Uluru statement. Yeah. So that's great to see that our youth committee are also in the same frame of mind as the council.
Mayor Thompson, if I may, it was in the previous minutes of the Youth Council where it was documented.
It was.
Yeah.
That's all right. Mr. Ryan has any comment. Thank you.
Councillor McCann. No. I should put that then, councillors. There's no more commentary. Carried unanimous. Eric, minutes.
Yeah, move the minutes, I move the motion.
Happy to second.
Councillor Ring.
No, look, it's self-explanatory. It is a good committee, as I'm previously said. Since the last meeting, we've all done a self-assessment, sent that in to BU, analysed and looked at for the joint committee. So it'll be interesting to see what the results come out of that.
Councillor McCandrew. No. I should put that there.
Mayor Thompson.
Sorry.
I note that by the support of the recommendation, not a question. I note that the Auditor General's report on procurement management in local government, Lithgow Council will take action to implement 4 improvement opportunities identified in the report. What are the 4 improvement opportunities? Can we get some detail on that? I looked through the minutes and I couldn't quite locate it. So, Mr. Gurney?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will send out the report I provided to the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee, which provides details on those improvements. And just to give a very brief outline, there were simply suggestions in the report on how councils could improve. Lithgow already had a number of them in place, but there were 4 we saw we could put in place as well.
So there's another 4, so, because I couldn't find them in the minutes, that's all. So you'll send that out, right? Thank you.
Councillor Ring.
Just put it to the
Put
vote.
that then, councillors, those in favour. Carried unanimous. Operations Committee meeting minutes.
Happy to move.
Then councillor.
Maybe the second.
Councillor Mitchell.
No, Mr. Mayor.
No. Councillor Ring.
No, it's self-explanatory.
Any comment from councillors? Yes.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I refer to tonight's business paper, item 13.1, Portland SPP. Was this matter discussed at the Operations Committee meeting?
No.
Got a follow-up question, if I may, which is, we have a standing item, water and sewer infrastructure update. If that's a standing item, what do they discuss if not this particular item, 13.1?
Or wasn't on the agenda. That'll be it. You can ask that question later on. Okay. Any other comment from councillors, or should I put that there? Thank you. Women's Advisory Committee minutes.
Happy to move.
Maybe the second.
Councillor Coleman.
No, I have no comment on it.
Councillor Ring.
No.
Right, I shall put that in favour. Carried unanimous. Sports Advisory Committee. Councillor Smith. Councillor Gilbert. Councillor Smith.
No commentary.
No,
12, business of great urgency.
And just a question, if I may. I know during the week we were sent, or council was sent a memo regarding the calling in of an DA application that I called in. Normally it would come to council. My question is, should I put forward now an on-site meeting or wait till it comes formally to council?
I believe that we could do that tonight,
It just seems it would
well, it's gonna,
make it quicker instead of waiting for it to come formally to council and then we ask for an on-site meeting.
yeah, well, that's exactly what would happen.
Yeah.
Is any council got any problem with that?
It's when the meeting is.
Will be the earliest will be the next month.
It'll be,
May not be.
So,
it'll be within next month, council will go,
Certainly, hopefully before the matter comes formally here to council.
We'll it's okay, we'll look at some dates in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
But it makes sense, it does make sense.
I thought so.
Any other business great urgency? Okay, shall we move to, closed council? We've got, 4 reports in closed council. We've got, Portland STP, Waterman's replacement, water mains replacement tender, proposed sale of industrial lot 55 Inch Street, and, closed report on the tender for construction of the new store building.
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion. I'd like to move that the 13.1 Portland STP be debated in open council. The reason for confidentiality, information that would, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law, seems to me pretty lame. When I look at the items that that you can use to have confidential matters, personal matters, that's reasonable. Personal hardship, that's reasonable. Information that would give a commercial advantage, that's reasonable. Commercial information of confidential nature, prejudicial to commercial position or confer commercial advantage, that seems reasonable. Matters affecting the security of council, advice concerning litigation, information concerning the nature the location of Aboriginal significance, or even, that's amusing for me, any code of conduct requirements. They all seem reasonable, but information that would, if disclosed, prejudice the maintenance of law seems to be very lame, and I think, therefore, we need to debate this matter in open council.
I'll get the general manager to speak to that.
Mr. Mayor, as a matter of principle, and through law also, substantially matters should come to the open council, except in specific circumstances, and we're very guarded in complying with those requirements. The matters that are recommended for closed session of council are qualified from the minister's perspective. I vouch to the council that they qualify to be dealt with in closed council, but it's not for the council to form.
Can I ask which law we're wanting to maintain?
Mr. Mayor, at this point, matters are subject to ongoing legal proceedings. So we're in a process that we're required to work through and go to the council. I say before the public on the video that if council have a mind after dealing with the matter in a closed session, they can bring it out to the council.
Yeah, no, I fully concur with the general manager. Does anybody else want to speak to this before I put it to the council?
I agree. Look, we're dealing with the EPA. That can be sensitive. We don't want to prejudice our position. I believe it's appropriate to discuss it in closed session.
I fully agree.
Mayor, I'm happy to move that the 31, 32, 33, 34 all go in closed council.
That is second.
Okay, I shall put that to council. Those in favour?